We're live. Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Insert Title here. I am your host, Raul Reeds. Today, I am joined by the authors of Pod, Iron, and Cold Blood, an anthology of the Weird West. I was going to memorize that 86 there really quick, so I was like, nope, I'm going to mess up. So, welcome, everybody, to Insert Title here. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
Tired.
It's a Sunday. Yeah. Since I decided to do this on Sunday, I'm like, maybe everybody's not like super hype on a Friday, you know? But before we start, I want to go around the room. Everybody introduce. Sorry, Patrick, you're drinking. I'll give you a second. We're gonna go around like the screen. So Patrick, Jeff, Wiley, Kenzie. We're gonna go like that all the way down. Introduce yourselves. Pitch any work you have besides this anthology. Let us know a little bit about yourself, and then we can get the show rolling. And Patrick, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. I am Patrick R. McDonough. I'm an editor, writer, podcaster, Deadhead Space with two friends of mine, Brennan LaFaro and Candace Nola. Besides Hot Iron and Cold Blood, since you talked about pitching stuff, there's another anthology that I'm super excited that I got into through his name's Kate Trapp Jones. I got a fun story in there. Think Cujo on literal drugs. I probably is the best way to put it. But the anthology is called Y'all Ain't Right, and I'm pumped because it's a Southern extreme horror anthology, and I like I like a lot of things, so I tried my hand in that, and it's got Wrath James White, Joe Lansdale, Casey Lansdale, Candace Noel is in there. There's a lot of excellent writers. So yeah, I was kind of blown away. It took 10 years, but I finally have some acceptances. So that's one of them. I'm really excited. And this anthology, Hot Iron and Cold Blood, I, as an editor, which I was never supposed to be, I could not have asked for a better team. They are all amazing. I love them all individually, and they're very talented. So, really excited.
Love that. I was just going, aw. What about you, Jeff? Can you let us know a little bit about yourself?
I'm Jeff Strand. I've written lots and lots of books. I'm mostly known for horror comedy, but I have a couple of kids' books coming out next year. I've got one called It Watches in the Dark, which is about a giant killer scarecrow, and Nightmare in the Backyard, which is about a backyard camp out that is interrupted by lots of tentacles. And those are middle grade, lots of humor, lots of action. And I'm also in Y'all Ain't Right with a story called The Moon Shining. And the echo is because I'm in the final stages of moving. So I am doing this sitting against the wall of a completely empty house.
You're good, Jeff. You sound fine to me. It's all good. Don't worry. What about you, Mr. Wiley? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
I'm Wiley Young. I've written, 8 books now. The 2 of which were connected to my story in this anthology. Had short stories all over the place. And if I sound absolutely exhausted, it's because I've been on the road for 6 hours after hiking through mountains for 4 days with no cell reception or internet. So anyway, but besides that, my first collection just came out 2 weeks ago. The Southern Gentleman's Guide to Murder and Persuasion. That's 13 stories that span from my earliest stuff to stuff I wrote this year, and I think it turned out pretty good. And especially it was dedicated to a friend of mine who I'm sorry to say never did not live to see it, but it was dedicated to her because without her I would not have been writing in the first place. So seemed apropos.
Raul, you're muted.
Still muted.
Still muted.
Still muted.
There you go. Yep.
Hold up, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, laugh and point. We agreed on this. I was saying thank you so much for jumping on this stream. I saw your tweet earlier saying that you were driving. I would have been knocked out by now, so I appreciate your endurance or your. Thank you for participating. It does mean a lot to me.
No, you're fine. I'm just happy to be back. On on the grid, like as I'm like hoisting my phone to the sky for updates
It's like,
in the
did the
middle of the
stream get
night.
canceled? Is it starting earlier?
Right.
No, that email situation, I was a little worried. I was like, Patrick, I don't know. Can you email them for me? I was panicking, so I'm glad this all worked out. But Miss Kenzie, can you let us know a little bit about yourself?
I'm probably the only one on this panel that hasn't gotten anything coming out just yet. I'm swamped at work. Everybody knows I'm a comp professor, and I'm just like lots of grading to do. I'm wrapping up an erotic thriller called Nice Girl right now. It is not my normal kind of thing, but I really wanted to write something that was sort of a tribute to the 80s and 90s erotic thriller films, and I wanted a book. So that's my current project. But like Wiley, my story in Hot Iron and Cold Blood is based on a character from my splatter western Red Station. So I, like him, I am also continuing on with the story, with characters, etc. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
I love a good crossover. Love that. I actually read your story. I think it's a novella, The Poisoner's Last Trip.
Oh, The Poisoner's Last Ride.
Yeah, I'll get
Yeah,
into
the
that a
only
little bit later.
post-apocalyptic novel I've ever, or book I've ever done.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. What about you, Miss LM? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? One second. We do have a message. They say, woohoo, Kenzie. Just quick love. Thank you guys, by the way. If you're in chat, I see you guys. Thank you. I appreciate you guys for stopping by and joining today's stream. But without further ado, Miss LM, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, so thank you so much for allowing me on this live stream with you guys. This is fun. I'm like, this is fun. So the Hot Iron and Cold Blood was my first invite to a horror anthology. It was great. I mean, everybody is like really kind and just very approachable, which made the whole process just so much smoother to go through. The horror story is actually an amalgamation of the deer woman or deer lady in Native American folklore, as well as a lot of psychological, diagnostic material from my master's degree program. And all that combined together. Along with that, I've been working on my Sanguinarian Id book series that has been touch and go, but like Wiley, my mentor, his name was David, he passed away in 2019, and he was like my English teacher. So he taught me like the foundation of writing and everything from the ground up. So I'm revamping the first book in the series as a dedication to him and going on with that. And the book series, I do all the illustrations for it as well. So like I do all my everything by hand, everything in ink, and so there's little bits of everything in there.
I love that. It's spooky. I saw that. I was like, okay. See, I could never have that around my room. I would get scared. We have one more comment. Yes, she does, Brock. Yes.
I love this. Sorry to interrupt, but I love seeing this. All the cheering on for like LM and Kenzie. Sorry, I just hesitated because I don't normally address her as LM, so it's throwing me off.
I'm sorry if I'm a bit jumpy and stuff. It's just like
no, I love streams. It gets you like really like pumped. Like you want to move, but like
I feel like the Gordon Ramsay thing right now. Like he's always bouncing around. It's like, hey, we're gonna do the cranberry stuff, you know.
I actually feel oh my god, I feel the Smirnoff on me already. I gotta calm myself down. So I did want to start with the riddle just because I wanted to do like a little bit of an icebreaker, and I'll give us a little bit to think about it. And if you're in the comment section, if you're watching us and you want to help them, feel free to answer it if you think you know the answer. But if not, just watch them try to figure it out. Okay, the first riddle is: while riding along in a river, you approach a boat. The boat has not sunk. When you look closely, you see there's not a single person on the boat. How is that possible?
Is the boat just floating?
I was like, that's what I was thinking. It's like, that can't possibly be the answer to this
Well,
perplexing riddle.
It's too easy, right? It's gotta be too easy.
I was in the boat and I'm coming back to get it because I
Oh.
fell out of the boat.
Oh,
I feel like the way my coworker figured it out, she said you're thinking about it too, like, literally. If that makes any sense.
So the boat is all in our mind.
As soon as you guys give up, let me know when you want to give up, and I can give you the answer.
I wanted to give up as soon as it appeared on the screen.
Brain is so stupid. It's just like, oh, they have a boat. That's fancy.
The boat's not sunk, not for long.
Not for long, yes.
We'll take care of that.
Good.
I don't know. I give up.
Oh, I know what it is. I figured.
What is it?
There are 2 people on the boat.
No. So, well, I'll give you a hint.
I feel like
There's
we're trying
not
to figure out
a
who's
single person
replicants.
on the boat. There's not a single person on the boat.
I've
there a
seen these
bird on the boat?
commercials. The dog stole the boat.
Is it a preposition issue? Is it supposed to be in the boat?
It's
Or is
the
it on the
answer
boat?
is in the question. There's not a single person in the boat on the boat.
But the boat's in the person.
There's not a single person on the boat.
You just emphasized on the. Okay, never mind. Doesn't matter.
There's not a single person on the boat. There's not a single
many.
person on the boat.
Well, that's what Jeff said. He said there were 2.
When
What is
riding
that?
along the river.
Is this like a Voight-Kampff test thing to find out who's not real?
It's a GRE question, a logic question.
It's super. Somebody answered it on chat, by the way. I don't know if you guys want me to show you the answer.
It's not a dry bank.
Riding along a river.
The answer is
that it?
it's a married couple. They're married. There's not a single person on the boat.
But that's what Jeff said. He said 2 people.
They're married. There's not a single person on the boat.
My brain went to the Step Brothers movie, Boats and Hoes.
I felt like you guys had it. I was looking at Wiley and I was like, you have it. Just say it. I felt like you were close to it. But
Now that we failed, no one's going to buy a copy of Hot Iron and Cold Blood.
I was like,
God damn it, Rawl.
I was like, what does this have to do with the anthology? I was like, no, I just want to trip them up a little bit. But we do have more. We have more later on. But for right now, I want to dive into the project. Patrick, what sparked your idea? What's the reason why you decided to put this project together?
Oh, it was all just like by fucking accident. There was another press called Silver Shamrock Publishing that they were coming out with like the 3rd annual or 4th, I forget, book in their Midnight series, and this one was for Splatter Western. So I was like, all right, I'll write for it, and I did, and the publisher closed, and I'm buddies with Patrick C. Harrison III, who was a co-owner of Death's Head Press at the time. And I just messaged him. I just have an attitude of like, if I'm not going to be rude or like a pain in the balls of someone. If they say no or whatever, I'll leave it alone. But I said, hey, are you guys gonna now have an anthology? It made sense because they were the ones that kind of brought back the Western horror into, at least in the indie scene, what it is today as its popularity goes. And he said, no, we aren't. But I said, would you mind looking at my short story? And Kenzie and my friend Brennan, who's also in it, if it wasn't for them, it would not have been a lean story. It would have been way too much fat in the beginning. So you can thank them for this happening too. But Pat read it the next day. I think he emailed me, said, it's great. If we were doing an anthology, you would have made the cut. And then I just said, all right, well, I know Ed Lee and Joe Lansdale were going to be in the other one. I'm friends with Lee. I know you guys are friends with Joe. Let's see what happens. And eventually Pat talked to the other guys and it worked out. And I don't know why I said this, but I was like, can I edit it with you? I have no idea why I thought that. or why the thought even popped in my head, rather. And he said that they usually use in-house people, so I just said, I'll do it for free if you want, because I just went with my gut. And eventually, Pat dropped out of the publishing company to pursue his writing, and it looks like he's doing really well with that. Jared eventually left too. Not sure why. And before he left, I said, okay, now that Pat's gone, because I was only supposed to like invite people in. I asked Jared, Barbie was the other guy. I said, who's editing it now? He goes, do you want? I go, okay. So then they just got full creative control, and I thought the project was dead when there was a change in the company, because I was left out of a lot of what was happening. Like, nobody said anything to me. I don't know if people know, but there's no hard feelings on my end. I'm still friends with the guys, new and old publishers, and eventually it just came together. I did all the slush reading, and Jared and Pat, actually, they said, we have a story from Jeff Strand. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, obviously. I didn't even read it. I was like, yeah, obviously I want it. And Wiley was actually an open submission, which seems insanely weird because his story was amazing. And LM, I've read her Id Sangarian. I always fuck up that title. Sean Cosby S.A. Cosby introduced me to her. She came on our show, and then she asked me to blurb her sequel. And I just wanted people that, besides like Kenzie, because Jared, me, and Pat thought it'd be cool. She did another story in that world from Red Station. I asked some people that you wouldn't think of writing westerns, because I like when actors do that, or actresses, like a comedian does a serious role and knocks it out of the park. And I thought a lot of these writers could. So it just eventually got pretty lean as far as the format, the editing goes. Turned out I was actually good at it. And then the cover came about with Steve Wands' team, the new publishers for Death Said Press. And it's just unbelievably cool. Oh, you're not gonna see it. It's my background. Whatever. Fuck it.
There you go.
So,
I got you.
oh, nice. And I don't know if other editions are gonna have this, but the publisher did give me permission to get I got 13 people to blurb the book, and some are by authors that I love for years, some newer, and it's not on the first edition. I'm hoping it's on the next one, but yeah, I got full creative control. No idea why, and it ended up turning out to be something I'm good at, and I got more anthologies on the way. So that's a story in a nutshell.
I love how you answer like 1, 2, 3, 4 questions together. So
okay, good night.
You're good. You're good. But I do. Oh, really quick. We do have some comments. Yes, more love. We love that. Well, I do have one more for this part for you, Patrick. When it comes to these kind of projects, because you also have a story in here, so what is your favorite hat to wear during these projects? The editor hat, now that you have you've gotten a taste for it, or the author hat? Which one do you prefer now?
Well, before this one, if you go back 2 years, because last year I got Jill Girardi, who's got the first story in here, invited me to be in an anthology as a writer, and that was pretty special. But before that, I would say writer, because I was, excuse me, I got rejected for everything I did for 6 years, so it was nice to finally get some acceptances. But editor, I like that a lot more. But it has to fall under certain parameters, and with the second anthology, it falls under these parameters too, which is, if I can't do it my way, and I'm reasonable, I'm not trying to control. I know the publisher is the one that controls everything ultimately, but if I can control for the majority the contributors, editing it, and the order, then I'm kind of all in. So as far as that goes, yeah, being an editor, because I got to help shape their stories, but not where I'm trying to be right about anything. I don't remember specifics. It's been too long, but I know that people called me out on, not in a bad way, but were like, no, I want to do this for that reason. And that's cool because you learn stuff. Like, I'm just thinking with my notes as an editor through my eyes, trying to help what their style would be. But if they come back and say, like, this is why I want it this way, you learn a lot and it makes you a better writer. But it's more fun as an editor, in my opinion.
I'm going to ask you about the process, but I'll ask you that here in a little bit.
Sure.
I want to dive into Rope and Limb by Jeff. This is your story. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your story without spoiling it?
The basic setup is that a bank robber named Darius is going to be hanged for his crimes, and it's going to be rope and limb. So it's just a noose around his neck and kick the box underneath him. And he basically tries to explain to the crowd that there are better ways to do this. And the story is a really goofy comedy, and things just keep escalating and escalating from there. So that's the basic setup of it.
I'm a sucker for a good comedy, and I don't think a lot of people know how to do it right, but you really knocked it out of the park. Is that something you like to, as they say, sprinkle in every story, a little bit of your humor, or is that it just naturally comes to you?
It is usually way more than a sprinkle. I tend to go just really goofy a lot of the time. In my novels, it's a little bit more of a balance for the most part, but in short stories where I only have to fill, 3,000 words, I do lots of really goofy stuff. And, Rope and Limb is really goofy story. I mean, it doesn't really have any point except to make you laugh. And lots of my short stories, especially my flash fiction, is just, full on comedy. So it's one of those, it naturally fits its way into my more serious works. So if I'm doing something like My Pretties, which is a very, very dark novel, the humor just sort of fits in there as I'm writing. But in a lot of the short stuff, it's just, that's the intention is, okay, what's the funniest premise I can come up with for a comedy, or for a horror Western anthology, and then just going nuts with it.
That's what I really liked about it, because when I went into it, I was like, okay. The title alone, I was like, this might be funny. I'm not sure. And then when, without spoiling it, the main character describes what happens in the bank, and I'm like, I mean, he's not wrong. So it's such a cool thing. I love when people are not afraid to be funny. I feel like sometimes people think they might overdo it. I don't know. It had the same thing with Larry last week. That his story was my favorite just because it was so funny, and it had its elements of still being a little bit scary, but just fun all around. And I just wanted to, I guess, shower you with praise because I really loved your story. It was one of my favorites. I had to highlight it when I was, because I'm writing my review on it, so I had to highlight it. But my last question for you on this part: approaching a short story like this, what are 3 things you want to hit every time you write something like this?
Originality, so that it's not like, which is difficult in a horror Western anthology, because you don't really know what anyone else is doing. And so you have to try to come up with a premise where it's not like, oh, look, there's another hanging story or whatever. So you try to come up with something that that other people aren't going to mimic. And in a story like this, pacing, because, the Westerns are not typically it's not the fastest paced of genres, but in short fiction, you want to deliver in a very short amount of time. And for this particular story, I just wanted it to be laugh out loud funny. Sometimes I just weave in the humor, but this, I wanted you to be laughing the whole time. I was just trying to make it as funny as possible. So those were the 3 things: originality, pacing, and humor.
I loved it. Yeah, no, I agree. I completely loved it. So, before we move on, guys, I have another riddle for you guys. Don't think about it too hard. It's gonna
Married
be.
couple.
Don't think about it too hard. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. You measure my life in hours, and I serve you. Sorry, I serve you by expiring. I'm quick when I'm thin and slow when I'm fat. The wind is my enemy. What am I?
Hourglass.
By the way, chat, if you guys know the answer and you want to help them, feel free. I'll post the answer if they can't solve it.
This is why I'm not fighting crime in Gotham.
Wiley's just like, riddle me this. No, bro, no.
Riddle this fist.
Like
Sorry, riddle this fist.
you were in a bright earlier parkouring across rooftops. We have a lot
Somebody
more.
already answered it. Somebody already answered it.
Really?
For real?
Yeah. No,
Ooh,
do not cheat, Patrick.
I didn't say anything.
I'm not coming after you. Does anybody want to give it one final guess before I give you guys the answer?
I've seen the chat, so I'd be cheating.
But doesn't it make sense now?
Yeah.
Shit. So the answer is a candle. It's a candle. There's no question mark behind it. It's a candle.
Nice. Candle.
Says you measure my life in hours and I serve you by expiring. I'm quick when I'm thin, slow when I'm fat. The one is my enemy. Casino flame calls out. Right. I know. All right. So the next story, Patrick, is actually you. I didn't do it in order, but I guess your story is the next one I know. So I'm gonna go so I don't have to flip back and forth. It calls. It's the name of your story.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the story without spoiling it?
Do you hear any banging real quick?
Yes.
Because it's my kid upstairs. All right, I didn't know if you could hear it. It's
Yeah.
not a victim. It's fine.
You live streaming.
Yeah, no, it's my 4-year-old.
It's coming from inside the house.
He wants to hang out, but I'm like, hey, Al Gombach's here. Love that guy. Still can't believe he said yes to me. Thank you, Al. I love you, buddy. Okay, my story, It Calls, is about a mom and daughter in a isolated, snowy cabin in Montana. And the little girl, like most kids, makes a wish on a shooting star. Guess what? That may or may not have been listened to, and she may or may not have been answered. I guess that's the best way I can answer or describe my story without. I mean, that's really vague, but I don't know how else
There's
to
characters
talk
in
about
it.
it.
There's words, a couple of pages.
Yeah, I mean, it's cosmic horror,
That's
which
cool.
I didn't really go in trying to do that, but it is. It's influenced in some ways by John Langan's The Fisherman. And it explores my favorite aspects of horror, which is family, the destruction, the not even death. Death isn't death. Death is too definitive. It's the what if death isn't the last stage of this game.
I like that. So I do have a question for you guys, and anybody can answer it. It has relates to your story, Patrick. I don't know if it's controversial or anything, but there's this discourse about putting kids in danger or like in a movie. What is your thoughts as authors of putting kids in danger, or you know, do you guys think it should be frowned upon? It's something you should stray away from, or is like all fair game for anybody in these stories or in these movies?
Depends on the context of the story, really, because it's like, I mean, look at the whole Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. They had kids just getting janked up right and left, and it was great, So, I mean,
This was like 14, right? 14, 15?
yeah, I mean, they did a whole series of, I mean, but if it drives the story forward or there's a purpose for it, if it's just like nonsensical and just slapped in there, then it's like, what are you doing? But it has to follow a story. Is this relevant to the storyline? Is it pushing? Is it fueling the storyline? What's the main goal of this? So
I write. I feel like if I were to sum up what my writing is, it's Pixar for adults, meaning that most Pixar movies either have, in the beginning, it focuses on this kid doesn't have a mom or dad or both or vice versa. And I write about that. Before I was a father, I wrote about it. But even now, not even consciously, I'll focus my stories on that. And my take, I don't touch graphic. I'll never ever write about graphic in the violent or sexual violence with children or women. That's just I can't do that. Just isn't in. It's not in me to write that shit. But as far as like death scenes for kids, or anyone else. I write about that because that is something I fear almost every day for my kid. I try not to be a lunatic about it, or try not to like be overbearing with my son or sons now. But Chuck Palahniuk, I'm not trying to name drop and be like, oh, listen to this, brag. It's not like that, but it does apply to this because I didn't really know why I wrote that. But when Brandon and I were talking to him, I think the first time, and I brought that up, he said that we write about things that we fear the most because that's kind of how we deal with it on the page and kind of prepare ourselves. So I kind of lean into that now. I think it's okay to write about really anything as long as most things that would make sense to, I don't know how else to word it, to most people that would be like, yeah, we shouldn't touch that. Then you should probably not touch that. But like LM said, it's how you approach it. And if it's something that is really hard to look at, I mean, look, I know some people are really touchy about this, but it's horror. It's fucking horror. It's in the title. I'm not making fun of this word, trigger warning. I ain't making fun of that, but that is in itself a warning. That's how I've always viewed it. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, fair game. I
So
think the last time I saw something like that was like it, with the Georgie, the whole arm thing. It was new to me, so I'm sorry. Because I just saw the 2017. I mean, I saw the TV series when I was like a really really young kid, but I don't remember it. So when I saw it, I was like, "What the?" I'm like, "They killed a kid." Spoiler, guys. By the way, Georgie dies.
it's my opinions. Kill the kids, kill the dog, kill the orphans, kill
Not the dog, not the family pet. Okay, I feel we have to cross the line. The family pet. Why does it always die in the beginning? I don't like.
No. I'm with LM on it too as well. It's like I don't think it should be off limits for anything, but like there's a difference between effective and gratuitous.
I'm so sorry. I was typing a message. I was completely listening. I promise. It's just somebody asked a question about Jeff, and I didn't want to put it on the screen. He's moving. I'm so sorry. It's because I didn't want to ignore it. Here you go. He's moving. Sorry, Mr. Wiley. I have a question for you before we move on. When it comes to research, these westerns, how did you do it? What did you look for your research? Because I try to look for some research to write a western, and I didn't know where to actually look for things. This is not me asking for advice, but it's like, how did you guys as authors, what did you guys seek out?
Well, I have a history degree, so
humble brag.
I spend a lot of time in history books and reading about things that happened way back when, and like minor wars and conflicts and how people live their lives and so on and so forth. So I at least had 4 years of preparation in college for it. Besides that, it's just literally going to your library, or even better, a quick Google search to find accuracy with well annotated sources. And then you watch every Clint Eastwood movie you have, and decide that makes for good entertainment, and you can just sprinkle in the boring but accurate stuff.
I found this after, so this is not a resource that I use, but Louis L'Amour's Wild West. For those that don't know who Louis L'Amour is, he wrote, I think it was like 100 novels. He's one of the biggest Western writers ever, and
until now.
Dun dun dun, and it just shows all the research he did for it. So if you're writing one, that could be a helpful. It could be a helpful resource.
I love that. It's very on brand for me. Initially, my whole theme was Western because I live in Texas. Had a little bit of a hiccup on Twitter. Decided to go for the glitch. I was like, all right, we're on glitchy now. That's why anytime you guys see any promo for me, there's a glitch. That's my thing now. I've been had it since 2021. But we are going to our next riddle. All right. If 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, what are 4 and 5?
A nuisance and a home invasion.
As always, Chad, if you guys want to help them, if
If
you guys
two
feel
is
like, do and you know what, Chad, do not be googling the answers because I just realized you can Google the answers. Do not Google the answers.
9.
Play fair.
This is a
a
math
company,
question.
is a crowd.
So if 2 is
Did you say that?
3 is a crowd, what are 4 and 5?
I'm going to stick with 9 as my final answer.
What was the answer?
9.
Yes, Jeff. Yes. That's the answer. That's the correct answer. Yes. Sorry.
I was joking.
Yeah. Someone just guessed
All
it, but yes. If 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, 4 and 5 are 9. Correct, Jeff. Okay.
What do I win?
Glad you got one, guys. I'm super glad you got one. Okay. Old habits. That's our next story on my little notes here. All right, Miss. Can I call you Leah?
Yeah, sure, if you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, what the fuck? That's why. That's why I kept getting tripped up.
I mean,
Why?
people keep on commenting my name and stuff in the comments, so it's like,
Yeah. So I was like, yeah. Here's my question for your story. Oh, actually, first, can you tell us what your story is about without spoiling it?
Yeah, sure. So definitely main character William is reminiscing on some very dark parts of his past pertaining to him and interactions with his father. And throughout the story, as I mentioned before, there are like a strong elements based upon like the deer woman or deer lady from Native American folklore. And I love medical like just elements. I love medical illustrations, anything that deals with diseases and ailments, especially historical diseases and ailments. So that's just combined together to create the backdrop of the story, and it goes from there.
I think your story, even though I wrote my notes out of order for some reason, but I think your story was one of the last ones I read, and what I really liked about it, there's actually this one line that caught me off guard, made me laugh, and I was like, "Yo, that sounds really good." It's "I swear your mama raised a bitch." Caught me off guard. I started laughing. I was like, "Yup, this is my kind of story. I love this." But is there any particular era of horror that you draw your inspiration? That's your question that I have for you.
Like particular era, like as in history or
Like there's like 80s horror, 90s horror, like in that type of.
really just anywhere around any story that sounds good, tell you the truth. I mean, there's tons of horror stories in history. I mean, the truth is way more messed up than the imagination is, you know? So it's just like, is it solid? Is it consistent? Does it, disgust you? It doesn't have to like scare you all the time, just as long as it gets some kind of emotion, because some good horror is stuff that lingers. I also love like watching different horror from video games, like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, Fear and Hunger. I mean, I like horror in all kinds of ways. So just whatever combination like feels good. It's like like that late night craving snack. You go to the kitchen, it's like, what do I have in my fridge? This works. And it just hits the spot right.
I really like the tension building in this story. There's a sense I'm really scared of a couple of things, not a lot of things. Silence scares me. Seeing something and nobody else seeing it, or like seeing something approach you and like trying to get help, and it was just like that's like my biggest fear. And I feel like our main character William went through that. How did you like get into that mind frame to make this tension really pop off the pages?
Well, it's also feeding from a lot of harsh discourse back, just like growing up. And that's kind of like the thing where everybody was talking about, like, kids and horror and stuff. Kids experience more horror than most people tend to want to talk about or agree on. And a lot of horror writers or thriller authors, directors, they went through a lot of messed up childhoods. So it's like, where's your source? I mean, just feed off of me, I guess. So it goes from there. But the tension, the dialogue, we've all had, like, either seeing someone who's had a messed up communication with their parents or strenuous conversations with our parents. It's like that tension you feel that's just locked up inside of your neck, like, you makes your jaw clench. The feeling of rejection, disappointment, and then that goes into isolation with it. Am I ever good enough? Am I ever going to be good enough? And then the main person you look up to doesn't really give a shit about you. So the feeling of never getting closure from someone, it's all psychological elements that just feed in with each other. And then combine that with the hopelessness of diseases that emerged back at that time, you know, where people were just figuring out what the hell to do and not to spread it. It helped me formulate old habits.
Yeah, it was. I like your very how descriptive you are. I was imagining like the lips. I was like,
Oh yeah,
that grossed me out. I'm like, crusty. Let's get her some chapstick or something.
I
So,
know, right?
I
Get some
really,
kind of stir on there a little bit.
yeah. No, I really did enjoy your story, and so thank you so much for sharing that. I know there's a lot of because when I write my stories, when I like to read, I like to be able to relate, and I'm glad I don't relate to this story. I'm just because for the long time I didn't even know the doctor was his dad. I'm like, damn, this guy, his
Yeah,
employer.
and that's it because like a lot of stuff in like, you know, male psychology tends to go unheard as well. Just like, you know, the fear and the unspoken horror like between men and their fathers or other grown men in their life. And sometimes that feeling can become very estranged and, you know, can warp your whole world if you're in that type of experience.
It's really good. I do appreciate it. Patrick, did you want to say something? I felt like you were going to say something.
Oh no, I just have this one scene stuck in my head from her story where
Yeah.
she sees this dude walking up and he can barely go through the door because he's so tall, and I don't know. Good luck fighting that guy.
And my favorite part is when he kept telling him about the horses. I'm like, damn, bitch. He heard you the first time. He heard you the first time. Chill. But we're gonna move on to our next riddle. It's super easy. It's like literally a sentence. What is broken without being held?
Me.
Oh shit!
My hopes and dreams. Yes.
A promise.
Oh yeah. Okay, Jeff. Come through with the answers. Yes, no, that's the correct answer. I promise. I got that from a Taylor Swift song. So that was kind of cheating on my part.
T Swift.
T
Swifties in the chat. Swifties in the chat.
Yeah, let us know what your favorite Taylor Swift song is.
Be on your best behavior. You don't want to piss them off, man.
Got it. All right. Really
It's going to end with you
I
all. putting us
have
all
one
to
more
sleep.
riddle, but I will put up the scramble word while we talk about the next one to give you guys enough time to think about it. Okay. You don't have to answer this right now because we're going to go on to the next thing. Miss Kenzie, about her given name. Can you let the audience know what your story is about without spoiling it?
Yeah, it's about the protagonist from Red Station. It's directly before the events of Red Station, so where the Lady in Red was before she went to the Adler's house. But anyway, so it kind of shows a little bit about her background. The whole title, I kept getting feedback from people saying they didn't understand why her name was Clyde Northway. So the story is specifically about where her name came from. And it stemmed from a sort of a mentor teacher from her childhood. And it begins with his brutal execution. I mean, his body. So we find out what happened to him, and this is when she was a kid. But it goes back and forth in time. Again, she's at the hotel before she goes on the stagecoach. And I kind of base, I like to base little things on real bits and pieces. The hotel is based on an actual hotel in Lawrence, Kansas, that had a lot of controversy because it had been bombed, it had caught fire, and had been rebuilt. So I tried to get it a little authentic, but I also tried to throw in some assassin, an assassin angle in it. And it's just kind of blended. I can't really describe it.
You actually
But
did a very
the
good
story is
job.
about where she got her name from.
Yeah,
So
you did a very good job. You did a good job. That initial execution scene, what I was picturing in my head, it's Casey Becker from Scream. That's what I was seeing in my head when I thought about that scene. I was like, oh, I love this. It's giving Scream. But you actually, let me skip this part and ask you the next question. Your story was, I feel like you write very good, like badass women in your stories. Like you have the Poisoner's Last Trip. I thought the main character was such a badass. And when it comes to scaring people. It's such a weird pivot. When it comes to scaring people, what's the last time you've been scared reading a story?
Reading or in general?
Oh, and like in general, what's the last time you've been scared from like, oh yeah, you know what, we can do both. What's the last time
Okay,
you got scared, and
well,
what's the last book that really scared you?
okay, well, there's the existential dread that I feel when I go to work every day. That is the last thing that really scared me. No, but seriously, I'm sorry. That was a stupid joke. Um, I car accidents scare the hell out of me. Car crashes. That is my number one fear, and that is, I was in a car accident back in August that was quite bad. So still traumatized by that. But that's where the Poisoner's Last Ride comes from, the whole basis of that. And I've written a couple other stories, centered around cars and vehicular manslaughter. Just yeah. But anyway, but yeah, that's what scares me. I mean, honestly, the sort of real life, visceral, in your face, anything that jolts you like that, and questions. I could have died. What happened? So yeah.
That's a lot to think about, honestly. I didn't even think about it myself.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm glad you're okay. So to pivot, just to lighten the mood, you write very gruesome stuff. Even in the Poison and Last Trip, I was explaining to my sister what I just read, and she said, "What the fuck?" I was like, "I know." When it comes to writing gruesome scenes, first of all, what do you need to take a sip of something, a little bit of coffee, a little bit of something, or
Mm-mm.
like, how do you get into that headspace? You're like,
There are things I can't stand. I mean, I know a lot of people who write extreme horror have the same kind of, the things that make us cringe are the ones we most likely want to write. I mean, my thing is head destroying. Anything, obviously, I can't stand head destroying, so I will put it in there. It will, in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's just whatever is makes me personally ill. I will be glad to write about it.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
do
know
have a lot of
why.
head explosions. Yep,
It's
yep.
masochistic. I don't know what else to say.
It's very dark. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was telling my sister, I was like, because I was reading a bunch of novellas like back to back, and it's like different genres. And I was like, I'm gonna read this one. It's called The Poisoner's Last Trip, because she's a big reader now, very big avid reader. And I was like, dude, read this. I'm like, it's very gruesome, and people like somebody's head, like in my head, I imagined it like it blew up, veins and like blood coming out of everywhere. Uh, but do you consider yourself like a horror author, or is it just like something you dip your toes in?
No, I don't. I mean, I guess I have to categorize myself as that right now, because Amazon doesn't like it. If you categorize, you put in
Can't do
all
knowledge
kinds
on
of
what
genres.
yet?
It's like you can't do that. You
Yeah.
have to pin down one. Um, no, I actually started my first book, and Jeff can tell you this too. My first book was actually a superhero chick lit book. It was not. It's like a romance comedy kind of thing, and it was nothing like this. But horror is something that I've always come back to. So I mean, my whole family said it was inevitable. You'll go back to it, and they were right. So.
Yeah,
I want to read your superhero chick lit book.
Yeah.
Where is this?
Good.
Yeah,
I've known you
did-
for years and you haven't told me about this.
Did you publish that?
Also got it.
It was going to be published. There was a small press in London, Ghostwood Books, that kind of shut down. It was going to be published through them, and then just things went bad with the press. They just had some financial difficulties, and just like a lot of small presses go through it. But by then, I was working on Reception, which was my breakout horror book. So that was, I just kind of shoved that to the side. It's somewhere, and maybe one day when I'm really hating myself, I'll put it out.
Well,
It's
Wiley and
actually
I want it now.
Right now.
Right now.
It's really good. The
You
problem
do a
is
really good job at writing that.
for practicing. So reception was better.
You got this.
Reception was authentic, right?
That's such a great escapist thing to read about. So really quick, guys, we're gonna go back to our scramble world. If you guys know what the answer, somebody already answered it. Do not check the comments. Do not check the comments. What do you think?
Snakes.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was gonna say.
we're gonna go to the next
Or
one.
sneaks,
What's this
or
word?
sneaks. Boots.
Books.
Yes,
No,
boots.
there's no K.
This
Never
one's
mind,
gonna
boots.
trip you up. This one's gonna trip you up. If you're in the comment section, if you want to answer it, go ahead and answer it. It's a Western. Everything's related to Western.
Longhorn.
Longhorn. Yep.
Yes. Okay. What about this one?
Noose.
Noose.
Yeah, I got that from your story. What about this one? This one should trip you up, hopefully.
Tumbleweed.
Jeff. Yes, that's the correct answer. All right, so I have one riddle, but we'll save it for later. Yes, they already knocked it out of the park. They're good. Thank you. Yes, Longhorn for 300. All right, guys. I have one more story to go through. Mr. Wiley Young. You were the closer of this stream. Well, not technically not yet. Completely. We have like a little bit longer than the actual stories. But you did close off the anthology. Was this a conversation you and Patrick had beforehand? Like, hey, you're the closer.
Nope. I actually felt incredibly honored that Patrick did that. Like, not only had he already assembled a killer TOC, probably one of the best TOCs for an anthology that I've seen in a long time, but I was very, very honored actually to be that closer, and they thought it was good enough to do so.
I feel like did you so like no nerves or anything? You were good. Like you were set.
Kinsey and Jeff have known me for a while. I'm not very nervesy guy. I'm more of a make up amusing things to tell people and then laugh as they repeat those amusing things.
I remember that his story was the last one. It literally was the last one I read of the submissions, and I was on the treadmill for like at the gym. I was at the treadmill when I used to go to the gym, and I had a kid, so that's my excuse for not going back. But I just like normally would listen to text to voice, listen to stories, but for his, I was just like so hypnotized by it, and I mean, right off the bat, I was like, yeah, I want this. If it's still available, I want it. And it only made sense to close it. It's epic. Of course, you could say that you could start out with it, but I'm not comparing them to any other story, but that just, why wouldn't that be the last one? There was, I don't even know who said this, but someone was surprised that I didn't have Joe Lansdale story first. I'm friends with him. I know he doesn't give a fuck about the order of those. And on top of that, it's just like after I got all the stories, Wiley's was literally the last. I mean, you read them all. What else makes sense to end that anthology? I mean, if I didn't feel like there was an afterword that needed to be, because it was such a weird experience as an editor to just put it like, this is my baby, but obviously it's not one person. Like without Kenzie or Brennan, my story wouldn't have been tight enough to present to Pat. There's so many variables. It's not just a one person thing, but like it is very weird how all this came together. All that to say, that's why I had the afterword there, because I felt like it was kind of weird and worth telling. But if it wasn't that way, Wiley's story just would have ended the whole book, because it's so fucking epic, and I related it. And I don't know if this is his mindset when he writes this character, but I relate that world, Magpie Coffin world, to the video game Doom, mashed with Silent Hill. Just because Doom is fast paced and it's like you're on crack. There's monsters everywhere. I've never done crack, so this is probably completely wrong, but shoot 'em up, fast paced, fucking nuts. And then Silent Hill is just so eerie, and it just, excuse me, it focuses on just really eerie monsters, creepy atmosphere, and that's what Wiley does really, really well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You are absolutely right about Doom, specifically the 2016 one, because one of my go-to things that you'll notice in my work when it comes to certain characters is I really, really enjoy characters where one that they have this mystique about them, this aura about them, and that everyone is actually afraid of them for good reason, and everybody who's not is about to be. And I love that trope, and from Doom 2016, that's what how the demons see the Doomslayer is, the one who makes them afraid kind of thing. And I the for Silent Hill, I actually have a rule when I write Magpie Coffin stories is that the if there is a monster, it can take human form, but there cannot be non-human monsters. So you'll never see werewolves or I mean vampires. I guess is the same, but I still count them in the inhuman monster category. It has to be something that is mostly human, but can be a little off. I like it when I, especially for this particular story, I like the westerns, old spaghetti westerns, where things were not explained very well, like High Plains Drifter and Pale Rider, where there's something going on, but you can't quite put your finger on what exactly that is, other than it is supernatural in nature. But I enjoyed writing that story because that takes place before Magpie Coffin does. So it's the youngest we actually see Salem on the timeline, free of his brother, free of any revenge he's had. He's literally just going around killing people. So it's just Salem at his most raw at that time.
Yeah, and you want to talk about what would you do or what are your feelings on writing kids? I'm not gonna say anymore, but like if Wiley didn't answer that question, that story certainly will.
Not gratuitous, but effective.
I never gave you I don't think, call me out if I did, but I don't think I gave you a note where I'm like, this is too much. I don't think I said that to anyone.
Nope, especially since right around no, it was after that, but my daughter was born shortly after that, and now I'm just like, yep, that is one of the things I'm terrified of is something happening to kids, but doesn't
Oh
mean I'm
my
going to stop.
god.
Doesn't mean I'm going to stop adding it to my stories because unfortunately, bad things do happen to kids in this world, whether we like it or not, and it or I better should say whether we want it to or not, because yeah, but
Absolutely.
but hey, it worked out, and I threw in my religious upbringing into my. And if you read the story, you can kind of see my feelings on organized religion.
He said no spoilers. But before I let you guys go, Patrick, you have one more question, and then we're gonna do an elevator pitch for everybody. So, if you guys can think about how you want to pitch your work outside of this anthology, this would be the moment to think about it. But Patrick, you're gonna buy them some time. During this process, what is something you have learned as an editor that you will take with you on future projects?
Um well, I don't know if I'll going back still here or not, but with him specifically, because I with Joe Lansdale, Edward Lee, and David J. Scout, those were all reprints. So I didn't touch them. Um Otherwise my answer may have extended to them. But I can't really say why. But without going back, I was really nervous to give them notes. And I didn't give anyone crazy notes. I'm not telling anyone to change the storyline or anything like that, but I was pretty because it was my first time officially being an editor. I was like kind of nervous as to what feedback I get back if I would just, it's just like rookie stuff where you would hope that someone that you admire doesn't not take you serious. And that wasn't the case. What I learned is if you have a good team, because I got some shit when I first announced being an editor. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people talk about stuff like this, but it's part of the job of being in any public eye. Um, I don't know why, but sometimes people will attack you, and it's good to not reply to that stuff. And having a good team really taught me and kind of just re-emphasize that like it don't matter what anyone outside of your circle says, because they're not in your circle for a reason. And whether that's you don't know them or whether you don't want to know them, it doesn't matter, because all you got to focus on is this book, getting the best result. Any talk outside of it, whether it be good or bad, don't get too lost into it, or you're going to lose focus on everything inside of that circle. So I'd say that is mainly what I learned. And it also, like I said, taught me how to be a better writer through learning how they all approach their stories.
Perfect answer. All right, guys, before I let you guys go, we're going to do a quick elevator pitch. Jeff, we can start with you. Let us know what you're working on, what you want to promote, and where my audience can find you.
They can find me at www.jeffstrand.com. I've got a couple of middle grade novels coming out next year. I've got a huge backlist, so just type my name in Amazon. It's generally fast-paced, unpretentious, humor-filled horror.
What about you, Miss Leah? Where can we find you, and what are you working on?
So you can find me at lmlabot.com, and the Sanguinarian Id series is a contortion of malpractice, monsters, and madness. So if you like things bloody with historical fiction as well as different types of medical science, you can find my work at lmlabot.com. And lmlabot on Facebook. Feel free to befriend me.
What about you, Mr. Wiley? Where can we find you, and what are you working on? What do you want to promote?
All right. So you can find me, unlike the previous two, I don't have a website yet, working on it. But you can find me on all my social medias, which Wiley Young on Facebook, Wiley Young on Instagram, Wiley Young on Twitter, Wiley Young on Blue Sky, and my Substack, which is has really helped, which is Transmissions from Black Hole Planet 3. And so that gives you all the updates, everything that I'm working on this neo slasher novel that I'm really excited about. I'm like posing the question, what if therapy had actually worked on Michael Myers and he had to reintegrate back into society? And so I know that sounds humorous, but the novel itself is assuredly not. Like, the main character has recurring like thoughts of just like murdering on a regular basis, and even her, yes, because it is her own child, when her child makes her mad, she's just like, I could reach and snap their neck easy. And yeah, so going with that question, seeing how does that kind of person function, and what if they were to be reset off, kind of thing. And as for what I'm promoting, my new collection, The Southern Gentleman's Guide to Murder and Persuasion, my first short story collection. I'm kind of a all-purpose horror author. You want extreme and bloody, got that. You want spooky and eerie, got that. You got Southern, got a lot of that. You want just a ghost story, got that too.
It's a mixed bag. I love that. What about you, Miss Kenzie? What would you like to promote? Where can we find you?
Oh, the kids do so well. I'm not very good at this. You can find me at kenziejennings.com, just like everybody else in their websites. I'm also all over social media. Same thing. You can find me on virtually everything, including TikTok. I don't know how my students got me on that, but I am. Look for Nice Girl. That will be coming early next year. It is very much a fatal attraction in Central Florida erotic thriller with some horror in it too. So if you are a horror fan, you will enjoy it as well.
All right, Patrick, you feel free to close this off, and then I'll just do the sign off. But where can my audience find you and what you're working on?
Yeah, I was gonna say TikTok. This podcast is on TikTok, but for me personally, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. PR McDonough is probably how you're gonna get it. A book I do want to promote. I got an invite to be the forward, so that was the first time I got to do this for Candice Nola's Dark Disasters. It's an anthology, 12 authors. They cover, the theme is natural disasters, but It is much more than that. It comes out, I think, in 2 weeks. It's excellent stuff. Like, I'm not saying because I did the 4, it's just so it's really, really good. Real quick, Vivian Casely, I always mess up her last name. She just said hi, and her story is excellent in there. I'm really honored to have worked with everyone: Kenzie, Wiley, Ellen Labat, Jeff, Vivian Brennan, everyone else involved. I'm really just I'm blown away that this finally happened, because it took, I don't know, like a year and a half to come through, and it was worth the wait. The other thing is for projects. I don't know when it's going to be announced just yet, but some of this is already out there. So Joe Lansdale and Keith Lansdale and myself are editing an anthology. I can't say any more than that right now. I don't think I can even say who's involved. That might be out there. I don't know. So it's going to be announced sometime soon. I wish I could say more, but it's a really, really exciting anthology. I would keep your eyes out on that, because there's a lot of authors I bet most of you love will be in this.
Keep them peeled, guys. Keep them peeled. Open up your eyelids. Okay. So thank you guys so much for joining us on Insert Title here. Had so much fun chatting with all of you guys. If you guys were on the comment section commenting your little fingers away, thank you so much. I appreciate the participation. Make sure to pick up Hot Iron and Cold Blood. It's on Amazon. I'm going to link it down below. I'm going to link everybody's information. Give me till tomorrow, guys. Give me till tomorrow. I'm reading Kat's book, Revenge Arc, and I wanted to finish that tonight. So give me the night to write all the information for you guys. Make sure to follow everybody. Check out their work. And we will see you guys next week. Well, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.